for your sharing. And our next scholar is Dr. Shlomi Doron. Dr. Shlomi Doron is from Ashkelon Academic College, and he will share with us about the LGBTs in Haredi society. Let's welcome Dr. Doron.
שלום לכולם, לכולן.
Hello everybody, hello.
אנחנו נמצאים בתקופה מאוד מוזרה.
So this is a very weird time now, and the reason for that is that not because of COVID. Yes, COVID actually emphasized different things, different differentiations that we make, but it's a weird time because we speak about identities. What kind of people struggle for their identities? The title of our session is The New Haredi. The word new is very complicated because new is a term that is not easy, especially for the people who live in close communities in the ultra-Orthodox world. Ever since the 90s, I've been following the new, so-called the new streams. One is the change of identities, and the second one is sex or gender changes. These are the focus of my research. We need to understand that changing religions, either people become religious or become secular, or people that change their identities and convert to other religions, and also people who change their gender, they adjust their genders. These are two terms that Judaism do not accept. A person who decides to change his gender or religion is not acknowledged by Judaism, in the sense that you are born with a set of values of either a man or a woman, either a Jew or not a Jew, and you're supposed to stay this way forever. Let's talk a little bit about the research or the study that I've been conducting in recent years. The research about LGBT became very dominant. Ever since the 90s, I started following the politics of identities and how it actually involves the repentance movement. So it's mainly focused on a small community. It used to be smaller in the past, but now it's a bigger community, the LGBT community, and in specific, the transgenders, ultra-Orthodox who do not want to become secular and do not want these definitions. They want to remain as part of the ultra-Orthodox society, and we call them trans. People who are between worlds, not the ultra-Orthodox and non-ultra-Orthodox, because they define themselves as ultra-Orthodox. They define themselves as Haredi, but they challenge the definitions of male and women. We call it transgenders, but they do not accept this term because their main argument is that they are not trans because they remain within the ultra-Orthodox society. So in Judaism, we speak about people who were born either as men or women, and we talk about politics of identity, and we understand that there are many people, many groups, especially within the transgender community, that define themselves as trans Haredi. Trans Haredi is a group that includes today more than 100 people. I interviewed in recent years about 70 people. By definition, they define themselves as Haredi. They dress up as Haredi, but in terms of gender, of their gender, they are changing their identities. Women who are men and men who are becoming women. We need to understand that in Judaism, it's very complicated, since this whole matter of halacha, what are you allowed to do and this not allowed to do is complicated. Is a person allowed to dress up, is a person dress up as a woman can actually pray in the synagogue, or can they change their first names? All these daily ritual, prayers, 3 prayers a day, and the commandments that are designated for women or men, now it's all becoming a mix. What people are allowed to do and what aren't they allowed to do when they define themselves as Haredi trans Haredi. And Leah, you mentioned the topic of missing, something which is missing. Lee talked about the 3 missing things, missing the lack of leadership, religious or political leadership. But here it's a missing rabbi. There is no rabbi who actually recognizes this process, tries to find solutions for this situation. We see a community here which is growing, which has been growing recently. And they struggle for their identity, and they struggle for what they are expected to do, how to live their lives within the ultra-Orthodox society with all the difficulties that are involved. So there are 4 questions that in my study. The first question is why? Why do people choose to start this process? You have to understand that this process is it has to do with religion, it has to do with the private, it has to do with the group, with the community, it has to do, it's very complicated. A person who wants to start or to go to have an operation, will the community approve it or not? I thought that the resistance would be very, very fierce from within the ultra-Orthodox society, but I was surprised to find out that it wasn't that extreme. It's not that everybody accepted it, but it was a matter of rejection. It wasn't either containment or rejection, but a kind of ignoring. So they prefer ignoring this phenomenon, so maybe it will disappear, but it's not disappearing. The truth is that it's not disappearing, and it's getting stronger and stronger. And the question of why, I interviewed 82 trans Haredi in recent years, in-depth interviews for many years, because I've been supporting these people for many years. I'm saying people because it includes both women and men. And every several months, I try to check what's going on, how do they change, how does the community refer to them. And one of the questions that I ask them is why did you choose to undergo this process? And the answers that I get are changes from time to time. And it's also, sometimes it's a matter of a personal need. Sometimes there is no reason behind it. Sometimes they have been sensing ever since they were children that this is not the right identity. Sometimes it's a different cause. And sometimes there is no answer. I get no answer. The second answer, how many people are in these community? Is it just, several individuals, or is it a real community? It is a community. The answer is that it is a community. They see themselves as a community. And it's a community that is actually that they cover the whole continuum of people who want to become more secular or people who want to become more religious. We are speaking about a community of a few dozens to a few hundreds. One of the problems, it's very difficult to count the members of the community because they are not they are not members of all sorts of organizations that treat LGBTs or organizations that treat people who become secular. This is just as, from mouth from ear to mouth. It's very difficult to identify them, to locate. But who are there in this community? It's a wide range: Ashkenazis, Haredi, men, women of different ages, people who want to become secular, people who want to become religious. I can tell you that it's difficult for me to characterize them. I can't really know. It's a broad range of women and men, and that includes coming from different communities. And the last question is, what is the process all about? What takes place? It's very complicated. So there is the process of deep change at a personal level and at the family level, because the family, of course, is part of it, and at the community level. Most communities really object to these processes. And it's very interesting that there aren't rabbis who support these people. You need to understand that the operation is very, very expensive. It costs between $500,000 to $1,000,000 shekels. It might take between a year or two. It's very painful. And once you don't get the support from the family or the community, you find yourself dealing with all sorts of processes which are very complicated to deal with. And to sum up, in recent years, I have identified that on this continuum of people who want to become more secular or more religious, we detected very unique communities that are made not of extreme groups, but people who really care much about individual, and sexuality is in the center of the processes they go through. Communities which are not willing to accept the classic definitions of Judaism or close that Judaism refers to. They are not willing to define themselves as either men or men. So the definitions that the Jewish law refers to or rely on, but they define themselves as human beings that want some kind of an adjustment. When the adjustment is personal, it has to do with the community, it has to do with gender. So, and the adjustment is very complicated. And there is no safety net from them or support net. And whoever changes his religious identity benefits from a safety net, because there are many organizations that will provide support to them. But for these people, there is no support. But at the center of this community are the rituals. Why do I say rituals? Since rituals are very challenging for this community, what they are allowed to do, what they are not allowed to do. Can a woman who is actually a man light candles, Shabbat candles, and can a man who changes his identity and now he's between worlds, can he actually go to the synagogue and pray at the cemetery? Does Judaism understand commandments? And are there certain commandments that they're allowed to do or that are not allowed to do? These are very complicated, complex questions. Let's go back to the title of this session. The title is divided into two. First, it's called A Haredi Society in Israel, and the second part is the new Haredi, new ultra-Orthodox. The ultra-Orthodox society in Israel is going through changes. Every society goes through changes, especially communities which are constantly growing. We will see different sub-communities. I'm not using the term extreme communities. I don't like the term extreme, and I don't like to talk about modern or new, because very often it actually limits what I intend to say. But on the other hand, I don't have any other word, any other adjective besides the new Haredi, because really in the 80s, we didn't see LGBT in this ultra-Orthodox society. It doesn't mean that they didn't exist, but now they actually define themselves. And one of the things that I found in my studies throughout the years is that when sexuality is very central amongst these people who are becoming more secular or are becoming more religious, those who go out of the ultra-Orthodox community and those who want to join them. Sexuality is very challenging. It's not only that you need to learn what you are allowed to do and not allowed to do, but also to learn a whole new set of values. And the group that I've been following does not want to challenge all sorts of commitments and all sorts of laws, but it actually focuses on personal identity. One of the leaders of this community is coming from the Orthodox community, and they are trying to understand that I can be Haredi, but I can believe in different definitions, new definitions. And the transitions between the worlds is something that I'm interested in. And now the question, how the adjustment is made, when the adjustment is between the different worlds, inward and outward. And one interesting question is actually a moderating climate. Is there a moderating climate amongst the new Haredi? Are there any associations of people that do want to find the common grounds or to try to actually adjust? But so far, we haven't detected such a climate for reasons that are obvious. You understand that the gender adjustment is still, casus belli, and it's still something that is very difficult to digest within the ultra-Orthodox sector. But the fact is that they exist. It's a community that it's in the midst of a process of personal search, I would call it. And it's a community and we need to look into it. Someone wrote the change that these operations that I mentioned are not funded by HMO, but you need to understand that for them, everything is impossible. What might seem impossible to us might seem impossible to them. They usually will not use this right to have to have this operation, taking advantage of the medications health baskets by the MHO, because they don't want to make it out in the open. They don't want to label themselves. They want to do it, under the radar. And so they'll pay for it. It's a wonderful question whether they take advantage of the right to use the services provided by the health basket. Most of them won't do that. You have 2 more minutes. And since I have, perhaps we'll open up for comments or questions. No, just at the end of the panel, because, okay. So that's it. I'm done, more or less. Unless you have questions, I'll have to leave in 3 minutes because I'm going to teach a lesson about ultra-Orthodox society in Israel. Thank you very much.
תודה רבה. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Dr. Doron.